Well, let's now have a look at the history of wine. Already in the Bible, there are many references to wine. For instance, after the flood, the first thing that Noah did before doing anything else, he planted a vineyard. And then, well, he got drunk and was left uncovered within his tent. Well, it sounds really unpleasant, but if you look further down into this particular paragraph or this particular section of the Bible, you can see that Noah lived for 950 years. A first indication of the health benefit of wine. Well, the Greeks also believed that wine was healthy. Actually, they are the one that developed a particular type of wine by accident. They would keep their wine in amphoras. They would allow the wine to be aged in this amphora. And to protect the wine from air oxidation, they would coat the inside of the amphora with a resin. And this resin would impart a taste to the wine, and they developed a liking to this wine, and this led to what's known as Retsina. And still today, there you can get this type of wine, this type of Greek wine. Well, the Greek believed that wine was good for health. Actually, the Greek believed that health was based on two different humor. You had the bad humor and you had the good humor. And if you wanted to have good humor, meaning to have good health, according to Galen at least, you had to get drunk at least once a month. The Roman also loved wine. They also enjoyed the wine in terms of health. And Petronius stated that wine lives longer than man. Let's drink like sponges because wine is life. Well, unfortunately, the Romans had lost the secret of the amphora. They did not know how to age wine. They would keep their wine in glass vessel, and to prevent air oxidation, corks had not been discovered yet. To prevent air oxidation, they would cover the top of the wine or the liquid with oil. Not very effective, and very often the wine would go bad. Actually, the Roman had a term for a wine that would go bad, they would call it vapa. And through the ages, it changed, it became wopo, and it became a derogatory term. And supposedly, the slur that is used against Italian among Italian is derived from that. So when it's used, it means, hey, you bad wine, well, which is, for an Italian, is really pretty bad. Well, in those days, wine could not be aged. It was kept in barrels. It was kept in barrels, and the size or the volume of the barrel was expressed in tons. And actually, you can see this was a 10-ton barrel of that particular volume. And actually, the terminology that is used to describe the size of ship, like 200,000 ton ship or whatever, actually comes from the fact that how many barrels could be stored in this particular ship. Now, as I mentioned, the wine was kept in these barrels, but as soon as it was drawn out, it was exposed to air and it could oxidize. And this is from where we have in France a proverb that says, "Quand le vin est tiré, il faut le boire." When the wine is drawn, one has to drink it because it would be oxidized very quickly. It is only around the 17th century that the cork was discovered, and this was really a major breakthrough in terms of the aging or safe aging of wine. The cork comes from a particular type of oak trees, and the bark is collected, and from it you can make cork. Now the next slide is really interesting. It is a slide or a representation of the first opening of a bottle with a corkscrew, the first example of a corkscrew being used to open a bottle. So it's really quite precious. Well, it's really interesting that over the next 100 years or so after the introduction of the cork, the shape of the wine bottles changed. Initially, the wine bottles were used to go and draw wine from the barrels. You go down to the cellar and draw wine from the barrel and to bring it to the table. And this is the reason why it had a very flat bottom so that it would stand well on the table. But after the cork was introduced, it was realized that it was important to keep the cork moist, and therefore the bottles were not, it was possible to age the wine, and the bottles were stored on their side to keep the cork moist. And you can see that within roughly 100 years, the bottle became more and more elongated, giving a shape that is similar to what we are used today.